afternoon, everybody. How's the audio? It's good? Okay, perfect. Well, this talk will not be like the rest of them, I can assure you of that, for a lot of reasons. Number one, I love coming to Europe because almost everyone has English as a second language. That's something you have in common with me. I'm from Texas. I do not speak English the way you were taught or the way it was invented, so I will probably use words that you don't understand. Apologies. Having said that, I like to tell my kids where I'm going sometimes, and I always tell them where I'm going to go. And when it's a place they've never heard of or have never been, they start to ask me questions about it, and I usually turn it around and I give them a to-do list, like, well, you should figure out what the place where I'm going has in common with us. So this week I've been to Amsterdam, and the first thing my kids came back with was, that's the place where more people cycle than anywhere in the world, and I'm a cyclist, so that was a pretty good connection. And then we went to Germany after that. And I said, well, what do we have in common with Germany? They go, well, Dad, you really like beer, and apparently Germany does too, so that's going to be great for you, so something in common there. And so then I said, well, I'm also going to Luxembourg, and they were stumped. Even after asking Google and ChatGPT and Grok and a few other sources, they couldn't find a connection to me, so I had to help them. And I said, well, what I love about Luxembourg, they're pro-business, they're absolutely committed to space, they're absolutely committed to innovation, and that's what I'm about. And then my daughter chimed in and goes, well, yeah, it's also very similar to Texas in that they're about the same size. And I was like, help me understand. She goes, well, you can fly across Texas in the same amount of time you can ride your bicycle across Luxembourg. So we do have some common ground. What I'm going to talk about today is not as fun as those things, but it's the threat to your satellites on orbit. So if you'll go to the next chart. Actually, I have a clicker up here, don't I? I'll do it myself. Next chart. So here's the bottom line up front. The U.S. and our allies, despite what we hear on TV sometimes these days, we absolutely are dependent on space capabilities to deliver combat power. Full stop. And that is the heart of what this conference is about. Everyone in the world knows it, including our adversaries. And every single day, they are practicing to take those things away from us. For the past 10 years, we've been watching, and for the last 3 or 4 years, I have put my career and security clearance at risk to tell all of you what we see. And what we see is listed on this chart. In this case, China and Russia, but mostly China. They are practicing all of these techniques all the time. Characterization, counter-characterization, on-orbit SIGINT, core-orbital ASAT testing, non-destructive, direct ascent ASAT testing, at least a GEO, non-destructive, rendezvous and proximity operations, other scary stuff. What's interesting to me about these isn't just that they do them, and I want to be very frank with you, they are doing them every day. But it's the way they do them. They do them in ways that are directly targeting your ability to deal with it. So the first thing they do is they use a lot of fuel, none of which any of you do. And the second thing they do is they do these techniques in a way that's designed to break the kill chain, our find, fix, target, track, engage process for keeping up with them in space and for executing operations on the ground. And all of you need to know it. So that's the heart of what the talk is about. I struggle sometimes when I do these talks because everybody wants to see the wild and crazy stuff, like what are the SJ-17s and 21s doing, and flying in and doing dogfights with U.S. satellites and all this crazy stuff. And I have given many talks on those. Or what does it look like when you do a direct ascent ASAT test as part of a launch, but you don't do the last terminal piece? Also cool. Not going to show those today. I actually picked some new examples that we don't normally talk about because they're just relevant for the people in this audience. They're doing these things to your satellites today. So we're going to just kind of go down the list. We're just going to pick the first 3, maybe 4 if we have time. But I'm going to put it in context for you. So if you listen to U.S. Space Force leaders like DB this morning, if you see someone in a U.S. uniform, that black uniform that has the buttons going sideways, only general officers have those or senior enlisted, they all say this in public. January 1st, 2027, we need to be ready to go to war with China, right? Turns out we're already at war with Russia. And when we think about that sort of outside of this room, and we just talk about it publicly, everyone pictures sort of on one side a combined arms military that's space-enabled versus on the other side, all of us allied together with a combined arms military that's space-enabled. That is not the fight our adversaries are planning for. Our adversaries are practicing tactics to knock the top off of the box. They want to get rid of the Skynets. They want to get rid of the GovSats. They want your satellites off the playing field because that fighting force on the right, despite all the flags, is not very different than what we brought to Vietnam. And I can assure you, if you had a time machine and you could put all of us in it, first of all, if you have a time machine, come see me after. Got some ideas for you. However, we could do this test also. We will take our militaries today, put them all in that time machine. We'll go back to the very southern end of Vietnam, and we'll look north. And we'll see the U.S. military. We'll see the South Vietnamese military. We'll see the North Vietnamese military. We'll see Laos and Cambodia on the sides. We'll see the Koreas and China in the distance, and we will dog walk all of them in about 30 days. We'll run out of munitions. It would be the only reason we wouldn't keep going. That is how dominant our military infrastructure is because of what we do in this room. And if you knock the top off the cake, that's not the way it is. In fact, you're all learning that lesson by watching how difficult it is for Russia to fight without being able to fully implement space capabilities into their combined arms. So I'm going to teach you a little bit, going to show you what data looks like to us. By the way, you're not supposed to learn anything from this. It's just beautiful. My boss designed it, so we show it just to make him feel good about himself. But this is how our analysts look at data. I'm going to teach you what you're looking at. Then I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to go out here and we're going to make the magic happen. So there's 4 corners on this box. The upper left corner, if you do, raise your hand if you're an Intel professional or you ever were one. This kind of breaks my heart. Well, you should get some of them in here because they're all issued 2 things first day on the job, a calendar and a map. If you don't have a calendar and a map, you're not doing any kind of combat. So all you have here is a calendar coming down the page, past at the top toward the present, and a map. Horizontally, it's longitude. So all those dots that you see coming down toward me is just when and where we took a measurement of a spacecraft. So there are 20 million measurements of Skynets on here. There's hundreds of millions of measurements. All your satellites in your geo, millions of measurements of each one. They're just plotted here, and they're just color-coded in a fun way. The United States is dark blue. Russia is red. China is orange. And then every other nation, based on our relationship, is sort of color-coded close to us. So the UK is also dark blue. Europe, dark blue. Saudi Arabia is like green. India is kind of a funny color, and it's just kind of algorithmically done. But what I want you to see is you see a lot of dark blue everywhere, of course, because we are going to fight. We're planning to fight an away game. We've got interests globally in projecting a way of life that we believe in. And so we're trying to ensure people around the world can have the type of life that we do. We're trying to project democracy, and we do that through space in many ways. But you'll notice there's some red stuff poking through right over us. There's a whole bunch of orange pushing through. So just all I want you to take away, when and where stuff was measured, hang this in the Louvre. It's just beautiful. Thank my boss later if you meet him. But we can focus on just a few satellites, and normally I give talks and I focus on these Chinese satellites. So I've taken everything else away, and you're just looking at data for Chinese satellites. These are their experimental satellites, SJ-17, 21, 23, 25. The ones that are out there getting busy, getting freaky, right? Just making the world uncomfortable by getting right in here in your business and doing, counter space tactics right up close and personal. Most of the time, they play with themselves. They stay China to China crime. Occasionally, they play with the U.S. We'll do a U.S. on China crime. But we're moving around, doing interesting stuff. Not talking about those today. Sorry for the bad news. They have other kinds of satellites, though. These are production satellites. They're inspection satellites. And you'll notice, like all of you are like geo satellites. You're just sitting there, just looking at me, right? Being a geo satellite. Those satellites, if they were to do that, they would make a straight line on this page. But they're not doing that. They're going this way. They're going this way. And we're going to talk about what they do as they go up and down the belt. So the only thing I want you to take from a chart like this is where it is orange, I took a picture and made a measurement. Where it is white, I've done some analytic where I've said either the satellite itself, Xi'an 1201, has done something weird. It's maneuvered unusually. Maybe it's changed its pose. Do you want to buy a watch? Whatever it does, that'll cause a white dot. Or as it's moved down the belt, it's gotten maybe inappropriately close to someone else. And now, because I'm close to him, I'm also generating alerts. So something about me has changed, or something about our relationship has gotten a little awkward. That's what a white dot is. Everybody kind of got the sense of that? So these are satellites like none of you build, but they have them. They're just moving up and down the belt, doing stuff with all of yours. And so the examples are going to be mostly your satellites today. But China does have satellites that look like yours. They sit still. These are SIGINT satellites. They could be comm satellites. They could be missile warning. They're just sitting there, listening to signals. They're sitting there broadcasting soccer games. They're sitting there looking for fireballs. And if that's all they did, there would just be orange dots coming down this page. But that's not all you see. You also see white dots. So our adversaries are building satellites that look a lot like yours, act a lot like yours, but do freaky stuff that yours can't. I'm going to show you what those look like today. So that's what we're going to do, and then if we're lucky, we'll have time to show the rest of it. So here's sort of China's fleet, everything but calm. See all those orange dots? Raise your hand if you see orange on the screen. Just the participation board. Excellent. Does it freak you out that there's like thousands and thousands of white dots where an individual satellite has done something freaky or it's gotten a little too close to something else to cause us concern? That's their fleet. And they're doing this because they're planning to take your capability away, right? So when I say China pictures a different war, whoever controls Earth or controls space controls the Earth. That's their strategy. And their military operational doctrine is pretty straightforward. They'll tell us the deciding factor of future wars is going to be space superiority. They're planning to take it away. They don't just want to take it away. They want to take your livelihood. They're playing in your office. They want to come in and turn out the lights and maybe take your desk out with them. That's what they're practicing. So we're going to look at some examples like that today. All right, so we're going to do some characterization and inspection. And I know a lot of times we just show it in data. Fortunately for all of you, things are about to get weird. I've brought my own inspection satellite with me today, so we're going to show you what it looks like. So let me teach you what we're doing. So these two that run up and down the belt, right? So what they're doing, when I'm going this way, I'm above geo, I'm looking at your backs. When I'm going this way, I'm below geo, looking at your faces. Does that make sense? And so when I look at an individual engagement, I can see what happens when they pass by a satellite. So we see them flying by. We see their motion. We know when the point of closest approach is going to be. But we also see the behavior of the satellite itself. So if you look in the upper right, you see a light curve. What does that mean? It's just some sciencey mumbo jumbo. But a satellite is just a giant mirror. And if I change the way that mirror is pointing, it changes the brightness. And so we can see when that occurs. Still a little tough. So fortunately for you, China has sent me SJ1203. Here it is, live and in person. We're going to show you how it works. We're going to head down the geo belt, and periodically, we're going to stop and look at somebody. Do you notice how his reflection changed to all of you? Right? When he changed pose to get in there and get busy, that's a nice tie. It'd be shame if somebody took it. Now we're done. We're working our way down the belt. We're headed this way down the belt. Nope, we're going this way. All right, sometimes physics is complicated. We got to get a maneuver. We're going to go this way. There we go. So now we're just working down the belt. You can see he's just in routine operations, and then suddenly, oh, wow, look at that's a nice purse. That's pretty cool. And we just keep on cruising by. Who knows, right? So as we're coming down, we see this behavior. Why do they need to see her purse? We're going to keep going. We're going to go a little further. We'll do a little more characterization. Again, this is what you're seeing in all these charts. You're probably thinking, well, nobody even knows where GovSat is. Oh, there he is. Look, he's got enhanced optical options. He's got an enhanced communications device here. He's got some unusual markings that I don't understand. What do I need that information for? That's what China is doing. Now, the CEO of GovSat was here a second ago. You know, no one publishes the position of GovSat. There it is. If I know where it is, do you think China knows where it is? And if China knows where it is, and they're flying by doing the thing, why do they need a good close-up look at a government satellite? Right? And then you just sit there, you don't even know what's happening. Or in the case of Skynet 6, maybe you'll do something smart. Let's get a look right here. You know, you can maybe put in a defensive counterspace tactic, cover up the payload, do something, have a plan, because they're coming up and down the belt doing this to you every day, nonstop. 2 satellites going each way. Does that make sense? I want you to be clear. Do any of you have a plan? None of you had a plan for this. Like, you're still just looking at me like I'm harmless. I mean, I might want to do something. And right? That is what's happening in space. You say, well, cool. Clint, you're just, you got a tinfoil hat. You know, you're just seeing the worst. That's not really a bad thing. And maybe you're right. Maybe what you're saying is true. If that were true, then I wouldn't, if I were looking at that and what I said was true, then China wouldn't need counter-characterization tactics. They wouldn't be practicing techniques to prevent what I just did, right? Except that they do. Now, all of you let me down. I've been told Chris is a great dancer, so he's going to be quick. So when it's time, Chris, I'm going to need you to show some counter-characterization techniques, but I'm going to teach you first what it looks like. So here's just a Chinese ComSat, what is this one? This is TJS-2. This is like missile warning, basically a ComSat, right? Just I sit here, I look at fireballs, right? And I sit here at, 66.5 east, and look at fireballs all day. And then at some point, in September a couple years ago, they demonstrated a technique, a maneuver, that moved them from 66.5 to 66.3. Is that a big move? Geo satellite operator community, is that a big move? Yeah, I mean, if you suck at flying, it could be, right? Because you want to be in that 0.1 box. But seriously, like you move over 0.2 of a degree, you're not seeing different fireballs, for example, right? And if you wanted to maneuver that far, you would do it for almost no fuel at all. Does anybody know what a routine geo maneuver amount of delta V is? Just yell out a number. Anybody? I'll take guesses. All right. I don't know who said that, but don't buy from them, governments, because that is the wrong answer. Find that person and don't buy a satellite from them. That's too much. All right, who knows how much fuel a GEO uses on a normal routine maneuver? To go from here to here. 10 centimeters per second. It would be a normal routine, just and remove. That's how you fly your satellites. That's what you do. Now, China has been demonstrating this technique for a few years. And for a long time, we wondered what they were doing. So all they're doing, 44 and a half, they're here, they move to here. But instead of doing it for, 10 centimeters per second, or even, God forbid, a meter per second, this maneuver is 44 and a half meters per second. So I'm going to put that in context. I'm a big man. If you saw me squat, let's say 200, bench, we'll do bench, that'll sound better. Maybe you saw me bench 200 pounds, right? I do a bench press of 200 pounds. Let's say that's normal. Would you all be suitably impressed? Some of you would be. If I decided to show you this maneuver as a bench press, and I did 8,800 pounds, would you be impressed? That would get your attention, right? So why are they doing a maneuver that would be the equivalent of me bench pressing 8,800 pounds? Well, let's find out. So I'm going to show you an example. Chris, can I borrow you? This will be easy. No pressure, Chris. I'm just going to need you to walk up and down the stairs in a circle for a little bit. So I'm going to teach you this maneuver, just at a reasonable speed where you're safe. Just right here, just walk on the edge of the lights and come around in a circle.
All right.
So everybody see that TJS-2 right there? In a second, you're going to see it flying around in a circle, the way Chris is going. And you see that blue line? That's a GSAP. That's a U.S. inspection satellite, an SDA satellite. And it's way over here. And way down there is Chris doing his job. And if he has not learned, and he hasn't because I haven't taught you it yet, the maneuver, this is what happens. You see, now there's Chris on the screen doing his circle. Go at about the speed of the satellite, Chris. And here I come. I'm just sort of, coming down the beltway. Actually, I haven't shown up yet. You'll know when the good guys show up because there'll be an American flag painted on the screen. There we go. So here we are. Right, and I'm coming. And I'm just sort of, I'm going down the belt. I'm below Geo. But I'm sort of matching my phasing with Chris. Everybody see how I'm going up and down with Chris? It's pretty good, right? Keep going. Got to go faster now. We got to go get there. Go get there. Go get there. And then, all right, here we go again. And now the magic happens. Chris doesn't have this maneuver, and so I get to do this. Just like that camera did to you, right? If Chris doesn't have that technique, if he flies the public space track TLE, then I get to do that mission and take a good look at him. But that's not what China did. China did this. Keep going, Chris. You see how he's doing the same thing? Now there's that 45 meter per second maneuver, that 900 pound, 9,000 pound bench press. In a second, Chris is going to get to do it. And I'm going to have to do the same thing as I did because I didn't get to change it. All right, Chris, hit the moonwalk. Show him. Back it up. Moonwalk. Everybody watch Chris. Go the other way. You got to go backwards. Now he's going the other way. And now, when I make this pass, it's over. So I'm going to let you watch it again on the movie. So Chris, as he was going this way, knew I was coming. You let me down. We told you the moonwalk was coming. Chris, right when you get here, just put it in reverse. Watch it on the screen. Chris is going. Here, we'll just pause. We'll save your energy. We'll do it together. We'll make it a team. Right, you saw him going this way. They knew I was coming. They knew if they didn't maneuver, I'd get that long, sweet look. He hit the reverse button. Changed it. Now, instead of me getting to walk alongside him for 6 hours with the sun in the perfect position, we're going the opposite direction. We fly by instantaneously. I don't get that look. They are practicing a technique that allows them to avoid being characterized. Which one of you are practicing with your GovSat or your Skynet or your SES or your Syracuse? Fill in the blank. Who has a technique to prevent China from getting that long, nice look at you? And why would they want to look? I don't know. Maybe some of those things further down the list. Thank you, Chris. There's more. But you might want to, if you come back, there'll be some more dancing. You might think, oh, well, that's clear. China's obviously going to worry about U.S. satellites getting close, right? I mean, all of you see an American, you're all a little bit nervous because you're not sure what I'm going to do. You have this sort of mental image of Texans, and it's true. I am packing. Bubble gum. I don't have a gun with me. It's Europe. You get in trouble for that. But they're doing the same technique against just a random Japanese satellite. That's a commercial SATCOM bird. That's a Sky Perfect JSAT bird. That's just a simple communication satellite, same technique. Allowed them to reverse the sun angle so that they got to look. And if Japan wanted to, I have no idea. It's just a regular ComSat. They couldn't. We've seen this technique practiced for the last, 6, 8, 10 years. And that's pretty simple. All it is Chris doing a moonwalk, right? Pretty simple. It's a RAN flip, single impulse, boom, and they changed the game. I said, well, why? That's not super terrifying, super interesting. What else can they do? Well, now they're practicing something new. This is a different technique. Boop. Boop. Who's got this in their playbook? Who's got this 4-part deconstructed change of your inclination in your playbook? Does Skynet have that in their playbook? Does GovSat have it in their playbook? SES, I think everybody left, but do you have that in your playbook? Have you deconstructed a maneuver into 4 parts so that maybe you just want to avoid part of the engagement but not the whole thing? Why are they doing this? Who's got this one in their playbook? Who's got a 5-part deconstructed inclination change? What are they doing? They got a high ink. Oh, they're going to reverse the phasing, drop the ink, increase the eccentricity. Oh, lower the ink, increase eccentricity more, reverse the phasing again just for fun. Oh, hey, let's just raise the ink because those are cheap maneuvers, right? Those are basically free. Those don't cost anything. Who has that in their playbook? Oh, let's reverse it again just for good measure. All of you are like, you're looking at this way, I look at it. What the hell are they doing? I don't know the operational purpose of that technique. So I will warn you, when we talk to Intel people, there's often this confusion like we mirror. We try to, and I ask them, like, what are they going to do? They typically tell me, this is what you would do. And I'm like, thank you for that, I know. But we don't know. I look at this and go, they're planning counters to something we haven't seen yet. So without knowing anything better, I'm recommending all of you have something like this in your playbook. And you say, why? Because further down that list, they're practicing RPOs, non-cooperative. Further down that list, they're practicing co-orbital ASAT. Further down that list, they're practicing direct ascent ASAT. And if you don't have something like this in your playbook, doesn't matter how sustainable your network is, if the box goes away. All right, so I'll give you one last thing. Oh, we'll do some, just for fun, we got some Russian stuff, just a simple one, because you probably hadn't seen this. So we have to report on Russia all the time. Here's a year of Russia flying around Intelsat 37E, right over the Ukraine, I think. As we look in there, red is Russia, blue is this Intelsat. These white dots are us reporting every day they're close. And then one day, they got real close. They just cruised in and got so close, non-cooperatively, that they started having to use EI separation techniques, so eccentricity, inclination. They had to start managing EI like you would manage a cluster of satellites. Look how close they're getting. We all have a sense of what Luke Olymp is, right? It's a SIGINT satellite. I can be from here to there. I can listen to anything. So what would be the purpose of me getting up here? Why do I need to fly so close to do this basic SIGINT mission? I mean, I can hear him breathing at this distance, and he's nervous. He's breathing fast. You say, well, how do you decide that's what's freaky? Well, when you watch Luke Olymp and Luke Olymp 2, you can see how close they get to targets all the time. And they typically stay here 40 to 50 meters away. One time in 2 years did they get that close, and you just saw it. So what was the purpose? Do they have a different capability that I don't understand on board? Maybe they're using their star tracker to do something. Maybe they got a small jammer. Maybe they're just playing games with uplink antennas to try different kinds of techniques for jamming receivers on the ground. I have no idea. Do you have a plan for when Luke Olymp gets within 2 kilometers of you? Because they'll do it. Here's Luke 2 doing a much longer duration, more complicated, freaky RPO. They're doing it while Intelsat 33E is maneuvering essentially almost continuously. Well, not 33E, what was this one? This is Intelsat 1002. So this has MEV2 on the back of it, right? So now I've got a satellite holding onto a satellite with a Luke Olymp satellite flying around it. And they're interested. You don't see a lot of military satellites on here, do you? These are all commercial. Everybody's like, we've got to collaborate with commercial. Yeah, we're in the fight. We are in the fight. I'll show you one last thing. This will be fast. Why do I talk about it? Intelsat 33E exploded. I have no idea how or why. Just assume it was hand of God. I will tell everyone in this room from a military perspective, that was your last warning. If it was the hand of God, that was God, whoever you prayed to, that was him or her saying, get ready, because that's what day one of the war is going to look like. And if you're not ready, when an ASAT goes off in GEO, whether it's direct ascent or co-orbital, it's going to look like this. You better have a plan for it. So what happened? It broke. Within a week, we had 700 pieces, and we had to call all of them. Because initially, the debris is just moving down the belt. There are 2 things going on. One, there's a ton of it. We're trying to recover tracking on it, so our tracks are uncertain on all of it. But it's still close to the belt as it expands. Today, fortunately, GEO's not a wreck. We're back down to a 1.1x, our routine number of alerts. At the beginning, it was like 4 to 5x, and we had to call all these people. That's what's going to happen when a bomb goes off. Every one of your satellites is going to have something fly past it real fast. And here's what it's going to look like. So I can look at, there's Intelsat 33E for 7 days. There's what it looked like in data. That's just thousands of dots. The day before, there's what it looked like the day after. And the day after. And the day after. What do we all notice by day 3? The whole GEO belt. How about day 4? Day 5? Day 6? Day 7? Day 8? Anybody safe? Doesn't matter where it happens. Doesn't matter if it's China and U.S. playing grab ass over the Pacific. Within 3 days, every part of the GEO belt is affected. You might say, well, that doesn't look that complicated. It does when you put every other satellite in there. And here's why it's terrifying for you. They've got satellites moving around like me in ways you don't understand. And there's 1,000 new pieces that you're not tracking. And so when I get mixed in a bunch of those, boy, it gets real weird trying to keep up with where did I go. Right now, who's giving the position, right? I'm just mixed in amongst the crowd, and then I can pop out. And then there's other places you don't know what's going on. So I can use that uncertainty, and I can mix in over there. And this is what it's going to look like. Just focus your eyes on Intelsat 33E in the bottom right. You'll see what happens. We'll do one more from God's perspective, looking straight down. Keep your eyes on Intelsat 33E. Have a plan for it, because they're looking at you every day. They're planning on avoiding, even if we get some protect and defend, they're practicing techniques to get away. And if they do uncork one of those really aggressive techniques, it's going to look like this. And even if you don't want to be involved, you're going to have a problem. So I expect to see all of your designs accounting for these kinds of things. With that, I think I'm out of time. If you want to see what happened to your satellite in particular, just come find me later. We'll show you some of those. Thank you.